Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode. Thor will be joining us. It's actually, raining outside right now as I'm speaking, and I consider that to be a wonderful time, actually, to speak, where the weather is complex. So I would say this, that in today's episode, a complexity complex, I wanted to look at the idea of complexity as it stands for human beings. I wanted to dive into what is a complex. This is a sort of psychological attitude. It's a term where it is suggesting, for example, some people have an inferiority complex. Some people have different kinds of influences in their life that possess their behavior. And this is important to get in a general sense. At the end of the talk, I want to speak about what is going on with human behavior. And I hope my voice is loud and clear, and if it isn't, please let me know in the chat section. First, I would like to read for you some definitions. And so the definition of complex, the word complex. So as an adjective consisting of many different and connected parts, for example, a complex network of water channels. You can say something is complex. There's another definition. It says not easy to analyze or understand, complicated or intricate. Another definition of a complex comes from mathematics, denoting or involving numbers or quantities containing both a real and an imaginary part. I feel this is perhaps getting into rational and irrational numbers from the mathematical sense. In chemistry, denoting an ion or molecule in which one or more groups are linked to a metal atom by coordinate bonds. Then we look at the noun, a group or system of different things that are linked in a close or complicated way, a network. A group of similar buildings or facilities on the same site. I'm just reading everything here. So in psychoanalysis, there we go. A related group of repressed or partly repressed emotionally significant ideas which cause psychic conflict leading to abnormal mental states or behavior. Okay, this is a better song. In an informal sense, from the psychoanalytical definition, a strong or disproportionate concern or anxiety about something. So what it is, believe it or not, an obsession through how your memories have taken shape so far in life. When we look at a person with an inferiority complex, they feel they don't deserve their outer realms, When we look at a narcissist, they feel they deserve, for example, not only their outer realms, but their inner realms. It's a bit more complex to speak about narcissism, because outside of being in your own universe, it is also awareness to the outside, to the other. I would say that in reality, we always have a starting point. Our starting point is our awareness. It is our In other words, in this world, you have the option of looking at things simply, where you can say there is only one layer of information to things, or you could look at things through complexity, which is layer, which is overlay of various information, you know. So the thing about this life, this world, is that it's not that there's just stuff in it. The stuff has a relationship with everything else. So it's like an option. Pretty much the site provides access to a dualistic opportunity. Now, when I look at complexity, we have people on this planet, for example, Leonardo da Vinci. He speaks about complexity in the sense that he says simplicity is the most ultimate sophistication. Because if you consider that you're living in a very complex world, your simplicity is you being one with that complexity. That means inside a movement, the less you move, you're defined by the overall movement. This is why a lot of wisdom traditions, a lot of just schools of deep thought on this planet, they have gone towards silence and stillness. In Farsi, for example, to the sage Maulana Rumi, he called it sukut and sukun. Sukuto sukun. What he means is that silence and stillness is where we find access to the true nature of reality, therefore attaining not divinity that makes you hierarchically superior, but an awareness to what is going on, which is another way of saying the moment has become divine. We're pretty much, I love using this metaphor, we're a candle. And this candle has a glow. So our brain is like the wick of the candle, and the moment we are born, there is the presence, positioning of consciousness. That is in some sense the candle being lit, and everything we see throughout the day is the candle glow. It's the glow of the mind. So it's another way of saying it's like when a person goes to sleep and they go into deep sleep, the glow of the candle is gone. The candle doesn't have a glow. When they wake up in the morning, the candle has a glow. This glow is your awareness. Now this awareness is being fed, is not being fed, it's being taught to people through image. But really, image is a percentage of the realm. You know, it is in some sense not the whole picture. There are states of being, which by the definition that they are being, there is nothing changing. And I'll explain this later. So pretty much the glow of our mind creates a space where we observe sight. This sight is moving. As it moves, it can be interpreted. It can be interpreted in a simple way, in a complex way. And if you notice, there's a correlation between simplicity and complexity. When you look at a complex person, in their outer realms, they could be simple, you know, or in their outer realms, they could be super complex. Or let me see how I would say it. It's as if it's the layers of consideration a human being's attention has given to one moment. You know, the simplest analysis of reality really that surpasses all culture and ideology is really we are just existing. So anybody who wants to comprehend the nature of the realm simply, it's so simple. It's existence. That means it's being its meaning as it is. So that is the simple starting point. Whoever you are in this life, there is, when your eyes are open and you can touch stuff, like there's a table here I'm touching, So the moment you can access physical reality, it is the simplicity of form. So the simplest state we find this world is that it's just being here. That is true simplicity. This is why children appear enlightened to old people. Why? Because they are still in the simplicity of life. They have not been shaped into a complex personality that has to. I remember when I was a young kid, there was this game. There was this kind of toy my parents had bought for me and my brother, where it was like imagine a spoon. Or imagine something like a spoon, but the center of the spoon is missing. So it's like this metal circle connected to this rod. And so what happens is you have to move this metal circle from, and there's a pipeline inside, and you shouldn't hit the pipeline, And that's what happens to our personality in life, really. Where the more information it has to respond to the information. Sometimes you do see badass people, like in like in history, in media, where for them the information they receive is not important, so they appear to the crowd as if they are levitating above the rest. But really, understanding is the greatest levitation. That means in life, it's not that a person should have this attitude, I don't want problems, or I only want solutions. The person should have this attitude that an event is taking place, and what is this? And from there, you start non-ideologically. Because we are trained. It's like, sometimes we may laugh. We see like a lion trainer or a dog trainer. I've seen videos of this on YouTube. You see, and it's like the dog does something and it gets a treat. And we're like, oh, look at that cute animal, but we are going through the same thing. But what is giving us a treat is the collective system we have all, by being born in society, enlisted in. So what I'm trying to say is that life begins from simplicity, and the more simple things are, the more unknown they are. This is why fools get into heaven first. I shouldn't say first, but early. Why? Because the fool doesn't have layers of complexity which add to the karma. It's the same thing that happens to anyone who has experienced a moment where they've desired something that was about to happen so much that it didn't happen. Why? Because the additional overlays of emotional and ideological preference on the moment shift the karma. So when things happen to us, it's a certain energy. And I'm not saying energy like, you're some mysterious energy, even though that is true. But the way I'm saying energy is what is active in consciousness. A person logs into their Facebook account or whatever, their social media account, and they log out of their social media account. And when they log out of their social media account, they don't cry, they don't suffer. They're like, oh no, I'm never going to see my social account. It's as if the manifestation of the human being is what intelligence of a universal caliber has logged into. The story of this world is not, believe it or not, is not that complex. Educational systems have to spread things open, have to present a big situation to have interest. When a person understands how sales works, you understand that it's reality warfare in the subconscious. That is what it is. What that means is if let's say you're a human being, you're born on this planet, you open your eyes and you're in a world. And so you go ask someone, hey, what is this world? And that person's like, oh yeah, let me tell you. And that person tells you what the world is. Ultimately, you are left in accepting their ideological view, or you have to use your own eyes. And so the way society is designed is that it makes the individual inferior. It's like, I'll tell you, it's so ridiculous. Right now in society, everybody has the illusion of being a good citizen and being united, but when we really look at it under the microscope, there is selfish greed that eventually makes things complex. And even though, like, let's say even the world wasn't like complex enough with all its natural mysteries, there's the human dimension of psychology. How would I say it? It's like when human beings form groups, when the individuals become a collective, the collective has a karma which ultimately impinges on the individual. That means really, if we look at our ancestors, according to evolutionary biologists, all our ancestors were wild animals. All of us. There are people who entertain different ideological frameworks, but we can't ignore how we are the appearance of the evolution. That means even though a person may wonder about transcendentalism, it doesn't mean that evolution didn't happen. Even though the world is a mystery, for me it's like a film where we find ourselves in the middle of it and we're like, who directed this? And if we care emotionally, we try to find this truth, you become religious. But if you, let's say, even beyond the emotions, it's as if you're here for a little time and you're like, universe, you've brought me here, what's up? Consciousness is the next great game. It's ultimately the coolest thing. I mean, it's like how there's some people have mustard on their face, and you're like, hey, you got mustard on your face, and the person like cleans it. So now it's like, hey, you're a random appearing consciousness. You got that on your face. What do? So you go to explore the nature of the reality. So it is really our response to the world, and there are levels to it. What that means is, this took me a while to notice, but ideas have multiple faces. All content, anything anybody has ever said, there can be many different angles on the same thing. That's just proven by history. Do you know how many people have written essays on Socrates in the educational system? Even Socrates is like, holy shit. This world is a movement in accordance to how much a pilot has cultivated, the person can navigate. Honestly, there's nothing to teach in an infinitely changing world. There is just strategic response of limited opportunity. That's it. That means to me, sometimes I think about life and I'm like, am I a machine? Like, and not like I'm a biological mechanism, not in that sense, but in the sense that, what is this life? Is it just a response? And so I'm a person, I'll be honest, like, and people who know me, people who've known me since childhood, they can testify. You see, due to an experiential karmic quarantine in my youth, somehow the way my attention had landed, and the way I had understood the world when I was young, I had this feeling that it was an unauthorized access. So for many years, I had this feeling of unauthorized access, but not in regards to the social format, not in regards to society and all that stuff. I was just, playing the part in the theatrics of the realm. But I'm saying, in regards to what was the world, it felt as if I had landed. You know what it felt? My childhood felt like I was thrown in from this pod. Where imagine like you see it in sometimes science fiction works, where it's like this space white pod and it has a giant circular window. and the person's just looking out from that. So in my childhood, I had that view where it was as if there was a glass wall between me and the world outside. Because there was that, I had no choice but to become acquainted. And this is the cool thing about life, that various systems, some of them, they allow access for participation in a molded fashion, in a filtered fashion. But in some systems, they actually push you. And so it was as if my mind actually, it was as if like I felt when I was really young. I felt that the world, like that Spartan movie scene where the child is thrown into the wilderness to kill a wolf while falling with a spear in his hand backwards. It was like, for me, I felt I was left with seeing what I was, when the world had in some sense become a sort of when I felt that there was a invisible layer. Years later I understood what was happening in my childhood. But that's the fascinating thing about life. You could be in a phase of your life and going through it and thinking you know everything, and then years later see dimensions and angles to it that you never knew. So I had become somehow forced by nature's circumstances and just how reality had gone forth to to stay with myself, to be alone with how my mind was just being, right? But for a long time, it was until 2011 where my ego broke. And I'll tell you how that took place very quickly. And it was really that I noticed I have no idea in all the years I have been alive what is it that is looking out through my eyes. Is it physical? Is it non-physical? Is it objective? Is it subjective? Is it simple? Is it complex? Is it real? Is it unreal? Is life an endless journey, or is life a sort of puzzle where the moment you solve it, you snap out of the simulation of what it had to be? You see, it's as if we are stuck in on this. We are inside this circular Elysium city, which has fallen onto a planet and is rolling, poetically. So we are in some sense going through various states of consciousness, and through every state of consciousness, literally the brain push like this candle. You know what it is? That candle glow metaphor I used earlier. The only difference from an actual candle is that with the heartbeat, the candle flame restarts every second. That means I've had moments where I've blinked and I'm like, yo, is that where I've been like, okay, am I a new self or am I the same self? There was a nanosecond of just instant black and then nothing. And then something, In the chat section, Aziz says, "Hey, I'm very sorry I can't be a member. I understand." Yeah. So, guys, the thing about the membership, this is just the model of the podcast. That means all the videos, all the talks I'm giving, they will, at 2022, the day after the new year, all these episodes that are members only will become public. The membership is there for those who feel like the channel deserves to expand. This project deserves to go further. That's who the membership is for. But anyways, like a heartbeat, like a candle glow with a pulse. Let's call it a candela pulse, Our eyes are not a thing. Things are found in the space of awareness. That means in any moment of human life, in any moment of human life, there is, how would I say it? There is the mind being and the body moving, and there's moments where the body is being and the mind is moving. This means we are parallelists. I can't pronounce it, but what it is we are in a simultaneous state where internally something can move, which we have called free will, or I would say it poetically just to keep the term alive, the spirit of the free will, the spirit of will. You know, this force that moves and decides and becomes. That is the free will. So there is inner realm ignition of movement, inner realm origin of movement, and there's outer realm origin of movement. When the outer realms moves faster than the mind has two options: either to follow the outer realms or to become stillness of the space. So what that means is before death, all human psychology becomes witnessing space. And when I say witnessing space, not only just a being noticing, oh my God, you know, the mind's quality is space. The mind is space-like in nature. You could say space is the substance of mind, especially when awareness arises. Yeah. So what it means is that we are alive non-physically and physically at the same time. But because we as a species are identifying with the physical component, when the physical component changes, we freak out, not realizing that we are looking at our body from a state of sight that is different than the eyes. I would say my biological eyes are found in the presence of my awareness, rather than I see my mind, rather than that. A complexity complex, you could say, is the infinite human. You know, it's just where it's focused on. Because I have this personal view, and this may be strange, but so far I've come forth. I have this view that the mind is the commander of the body. And I have this view that what is the commander of the mind is the soul. But I also have this view that the soul is not a thing. The soul is the whole moment being before we define it or move. It is Para Brahman active. It is the universal will. You can say religion has been or can be seen as trying to establish a relationship with a universal personality. That means trying to have a relationship with a non-form-based intelligence in your realm, active as I'm speaking. You know, it is what human beings have done compared to all the other species on this planet is strange. This strangeness is so supreme that in some sense we have to consider that there is something else going on from this materialistic theater performance we're seeing. What that means is it is like, this is, I would say, the evolution of a species into the eyes of the universe. Where a species, so think of it this way, rock in the middle of nowhere, a certain light hits it, creatures emerge. What do these creatures do? You know, like imagine this as a puzzle. So what happens to these creatures is that due to their senses, because our eyes are designed to look in front of us. They're not designed to look behind us. Like people's eyes can't turn to see what's behind their eyes. That's not even healthy. For even people who move their eyes too much, I will tell you. I mean, when one speaks, the eyes automatically move because the mind has a projective nature. So when a person speaks, it's as if poetically from their forehead, a TV screen is being projected in front of them. Now ideas have different locations due to our emotional nature. But if I get into emotions, that will kind of consume this episode. So I will leave that for probably tomorrow. To speak about emotions, or later tonight. But the mind is projective, and this projection is literally like when I like right now I'm looking at this coffee cup in front of me. And when I look at this coffee cup, this red coffee cup, I ask myself, what is this? What am I looking at? And the concept of coffee cup is like an overlay. You can say we are possessing objects in the void with subjective meaning for a limited time. This means the concept of ownership, and when you really look at it with the philosopher's might and explorative nature, you begin to see that ownership is positioning. Literally, life is attention inside an object. After 4.5 billion years having become a subject to itself, now it's wondering, okay, am I a subject? And so the mysteries that follow that are making it realize it is found in two dimensions. What it means is we are the first species on this planet who has put its head into, like, imagine we were our heads were underwater in a swimming pool, and suddenly like 8 billion creatures on a rocks, their heads lifted above the from underneath the pool. So our attention is multidimensional, and we are the first species that has access to that. Means in the future, birds may become conscious, various animals and creatures may become conscious. They may be able to lift their head from underneath the water of just nature's program to the free will and the power of the soul, as a metaphor. So we are known as the first biological, let's say, the first ones who got to who figured it out, right? So we are the first species that got our head underwater. Some people feel dolphins have done this too, but they don't know. Well, like, we have no way. We will become an advanced civilization when we tell ourselves this story that we are so advanced that all the species on this planet must advance as well. We get over our humanistic ego, a word that has been heavy, and begin to care for life intelligence, the display of active intelligence in various moments, When I see everything in life, I always wonder how much of what I'm looking at is like how completely have I looked at something? Because that question means the information is not clear. So that means unless we have all the possible information, we can't be certain. But the whole point of life is not certainty, because it's a dynamic state of change. And this dynamic state of change, you as a human being, ultimately as a personality, have the option of choosing it to be complex or simple. When you're younger, it's easier to entertain complexity. When you're older, it's easier to be simple. And the way life works is that right now there's just like, we just need to make a smart chess move, and what that means is to get children who have the most energy, time, and fresh explorative nature of like what the meaning of life is. So what we need to do is get the most complex questions on the planet and have children who have the wildest imaginations, in some sense, be able to exist in an educational system that is monetized. You know what that means is, if imagine how many kids would not be in the streets, let's say wasting the efficiency of their time, if educational systems would pay children to become explorers of how far the knowledge of the human species has gone. Can you imagine an educational system where you feel like your contributions have a value to the whole realm? And you're getting paid for it. Of course, the concept of money is its own nature. So many things in life don't need an explanation, because as they happen, they are the evidence of their being. I think somebody in the chat section says, Lorna says, I wonder if fish will fly out of water with a helmet of water on. I would say the greatest evolution of fish is if the fish's face shows emotion. We shouldn't expect that much of an evolutionary leap from fish. The most important thing is to see how their mind happens. Like right now, anybody listening, you're listening to a human being on a rock in the middle of nowhere, and how their mind is happening. Intelligence it moves in different ways. There is an important thing, a point about honesty, for example, made in Hagakure, the Book of the Samurai. Where honesty was access to direct truth. That means if you are dishonest, you can never live a simple life. It's literally heavy. That means it's like, there's this quote from Aristotle I should read for people. I don't know if I can find that exact quote, but it says, just a second, guys. Aristotle says, it is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. I don't know if that's the one Pretty much there's this quote from Aristotle, I can't find it now, but it says that when you are honest, you don't have simulations of yourself lying around in the space-time continuum, so life doesn't become complex, it becomes actually super simple. And its karma also mimics that. So I would say we as pilots of our evolutionary consciousness, have a choice in if we would like to pilot simply or in a complex way. If you want to pilot simple in this life, it's like an inner minimalism. This inner minimalism means you're just watching your being. It is not very action oriented, and it is, I would say, to be super simple in this life, you actually see extreme moments of karma. We should have this attitude that when we want to communicate, we have to have a welcoming view towards kind of complexity. It's that how would I say it? There is also a geometric nature. That means the context of the world is filled with geometry and design. So you can say our animal body jumped from tree branch to tree branch, and you can say our non-animal mind is jumping from realm design to different realm design, to different realities. Literally, the mind is a reality jumper. You know, that's a good analogy, I think, that we're literally like the Jumper movie where the dude could just, I don't know, he could just teleport anywhere. His attention would go. I feel we are becoming that. I feel that's what everybody who has celebrated their birthday has done. They have celebrated the successful teleportation of the inner realms to a new state, for example, to a new year in their life. You know, even though in certain schools of thought there is no such thing as birth, because the moment you don't have birth, death is meaningless. So this is where I dedicated a poetry book to this called Unborn Realizations. And what it means is you've realized that which hasn't changed and has no quality, but everything has changed within. This silence, the moment you find it, life becomes humorous. But it becomes humorous in the sense that everything can have any subjective valuation starting from 0 to infinity. That means a person can look at another person and see them as the worst or see them as the best. You know, it literally, the mind is projecting into phenomena, right? And our species has more reasons to be kind and compassionate rather than vicious, because we start alone. The Buddha even said this. The Buddha is like, you're born alone and you die alone. You know, and all the thugs in the projects were like, holy shit. Because in reality, if there was no mind, a mechanical solution would have been fine. If right now there was not an intelligence that could wonder and question its position, there would be nothing to do. This world could have been a photograph, but the universe has created a film, and this film endlessly goes, and we are, playing an elemental role in it. You can say an eternal being will not be overwhelmed by infinity. A being that has witnessed the void, a being that has witnessed the singularity of all phenomenological existence, a being that has witnessed its dualistic fragmentation. That means, strangely, everything can be good or bad. It's like, what's up with that? You could look at something for it to be good, for it to be bad. It suggests a hollowness. So once we have confronted the void and we have realized the void is present in a singular way and intelligence is also present in a singular way, then the being cannot fear emptiness and doesn't fear singular, and now they are ready to become an advanced communicator and understand their mind. Because if we are an eternal being endlessly incarnating, which yogic and Buddhic perspectives entertain, then we are not the incarnation. That means all Buddhist thought, considering that it's bad being born as a human, as if you gave up ascension or something happened, there was some sort of divine mismanagement, you would see that consciousness is maybe, I'm saying this poetically, 0.2% of what we are as like completely as a being. The species is an idea, and if we care for this idea, we preserve nature in the future, where cyberspace will try to capture us. We don't realize, but it's like, imagine a giant cube falls on the earth, giant metallic cube, and this giant metallic cube, like a vacuum cleaner, is sucking all civilization into it, right? This will happen in cyberspace, mainly because cyberspace won't know better. So what it means is that we are activating intelligence surpassing just human modality. And the defense of nature is really how much communication advanced, how much we get comfortable as minds, and how much in a battlefield against the unknown, based on our greatest knowledge, we march towards something. That means there needs to be like trumpets and battle drums and everywhere heard. Why? Because the motive of life, either externally, is being sought as the greatest value, or internally. Internally, as a mind, the greatest idea you can fathom is enlightenment. And why? Because enlightenment is wondering about how the light in your eyes is being prior to what you're doing. So in your mind, that means the mind is here to realize how you're being. The body is here to, in a sense, create doing. To initiate endless verbs, like a cavalry marching into the battlefield. We are way more advanced than we accept ourselves, and we know this, and this is why people want to improve in life. Everybody I know has of course the world is huge, but I'm saying, like, what appears to me is that people have become more from evolutionary conditional pessimism. We're moving into like more of a transcendental optimism. This transcendental optimism is important, and it's the era where we are no longer bodies, we are minds that move bodies in accordance to how the attention moves. So really what it is that the best way to define the intelligence of the human being is that it's a singular point where, like a coin, one side is unknown, one side is known, and that's it. That's where the witnessing and the ability of the mind starts. By the way, questions from engaged listeners are welcome. Pretty much there. I'm gonna, until episode 1622, I'm probably gonna give these live, and then, we stay true to the model of the channel. So people can engage, and interesting questions welcome. Questions that have looked at the micro and macro of the situation. So there is our voice is paint, and what we paint becomes our reality, and we function through this reality until additional information through direct experience updates us. Now the catalysts for direct experience are the human habit of knowing itself, people's observations of consciousness. I think this is a good point for me to just share some thoughts on how spirituality, that concept, has lived in the social mind so far. I would say that we are walking batteries, and our decisions are maybe like 70, maybe like 90% ours, and 10% karma of the world decides what happens to our decision. Really, when the mind is not an object, this calls for a completely new restructuring of civilization. That means we have been living in a civilization where we have valued physical survival over non-physical survival, and this made sense. But why doesn't it make sense as we go into the future? Because after you physically survive, you care for your non-physical survival. That means you care for how your mind, how much of life you experience before you die. So what I'm saying is that we have to re-engineer civilization as a species, as if like everywhere around the world, people just gathered around and they had, advanced communication sessions, as advanced communicators, 8 billion creatures, okay, big picture, let's go. So that attitude will inspire more observation and looking at life through angles that we have not done before. And art is the most important thing. Let me tell you why. Art is the future of freedom. And all systems of governance that care for the freedom of the individual. That means we have governments are kind of like different kids in a classroom, all the different political systems we have. And it's like these kids in a classroom, one of them is angry, one of them is, one kid is bullying the other kid, a bunch of cool kids have sat in the corner, do you know what I mean? So it's like, it's literally governments on the planet it's like a classroom. Now it's as if this classroom, a teacher is coming, and this teacher is the unknown future that we will have to meet, regardless of its complexity. The systems have to realign in being like, okay, what is the most valuable thing here, right? And this is where I've written science fiction, where I've kind of created that setting in a sort of, I've kind of put it in a world on paper, but so I have envisioned in my sci-fi novel set in the year 5025. that in the future, the government of that year 5025, not only human beings have gone through many enlightening revolutions in their human behavior, but they have in some sense reached a point where their government of the time is called the Enlightened Society. I'm just trying to remember the details. Okay, so the Enlightened Society, I remember writing this paragraph where the Enlightened Society, a member of it, and all the members of the Enlightened Society are glowing light. They're kind of like human form, but they're light. They're just pure light, you know? And so the members of the Enlightened Society give this speech on all ideology on the planet. And it's this epic speech I wrote, and it's like a character in the sci-fi saying it. But the whole speech that the person gives is saying that we are treating all religions, all ideological systems as artwork, and as artwork that is fascinating to understand what it would imply. Right? So if we treat everything like art, you know, you see museums in like art galleries, you don't see somebody like going and destroying a painting because like they don't like the painting. You know, you respect art. Why? Because it's innocent. Because it's just expression. It's raw expression. Do you know? And so if we see that underneath everything that has happened, that there is a raw expression there. So the Enlightened Society pretty much says everything should be treated like artwork that was drawn by master painters, and everything is cared for because an advanced civilization is smart. It doesn't get rid of information in the void. It in some sense uses the information that it has accessible to restructure, to update. Like that's the coolest word, you know? Or even the evolution of updating something is advancement. That means some people want to go one step ahead, some people want to go 2 steps ahead, some people are like, I'm so brave, I'm going to go 3 steps ahead, you know? But there's some people who they don't care for the steps. They're like, what am I playing this number game? It is literally attention and where it wants to be piloted to, where it wants to go. And when you have this attention, you understand how canines in nature live. You understand how the lion stares, do you know? And it's an incredible concept. Why? Because it is the maxing out. It's literally as if the inner realms, like Goku about to throw some, you know, giant power. You know, it's a zooming in of your mind on the outer realms, and that concentration is like another good analogy would be like a magnifier in sunlight, creating that focal point of light. A world shall arrive where human beings realize their existential opportunity, which is simultaneously being an experiential opportunity, and to discover for yourself as a being here for a little while what this is the attempt at the secret of eons. There's things that our ancestors dreamed about, and there were things that our ancestors dreamed about but thought was never possible, but now our hands can reach. You see, it's all an attitude shift, and one thing I don't like about the New Age community where I would say this personally, like whoever you are, bless you, be whoever you are. But what I'm saying, like, what I don't like is that an avoidance of the future, because one thinks everything is just here and now. It's like, great, you're here and now what do you do in the here and now? And that question is not answered by ancient enlightenment knowledge. Why? Because they were in a different phase of life. They were still living in the jungles. The yogis weren't like on, balconies, giving a podcast. The yogis were in some sense like in the forest, sitting still, realizing that if they showed fear, a wild animal would eat them. But if they realized that they were part of nature, and there your presence stands, and you have that mentality, I'm telling you, you don't need inspiration, you don't need motivation, you're a pilot, just choose your destination. And what I mean is that you move your attention, you ride it as if like you are marching into battle, like a cool action movie from back in the day, Questions in the chat section. Lorna says, if we can heal ourselves by consciousness, why can't we fix the planet too? Anytime human beings try to fix the planet, I feel the planet is just laughing. It's like, buddy, you trying to fix me? And the planet's like, fix yourself to the human being, right? And so the best way we can fix the planet is shifting our behavior to what really we feel this planet deserves. I'm one of those people where this planet is alive for me. It's alive. That means consciousness is not just in my body. It's like it is there. There are. You can say consciousness spheres everywhere. There are spheres. You can say it's like we don't see it, but from with the inner eye, one can. The planet is nature's freedom. And those who are smart, they realize this life that is here, it is an engagement. That means it's as if everybody has an, let's say this is hilarious, but imagine a spiritual inbox. And they haven't checked their spiritual inbox, all the ways their intelligence has interpreted signals of phenomenology. Once you access that inbox, you realize how little we as a species understand about what memory is, because we have confused ourselves through a linguistic simulation. This linguistic simulation is necessary. Just because something has a bad effect, it doesn't mean it should be immediately removed. That leads to the dictator mentality. So the vision of the future would be something where it would be like, all right, world civilization 1.0, you're walking the way you're walking, let civilization 2.0 also walk. So what that means is, it's literally, if civilization was a boat, inside a boat we're trying to build an airplane before this boat sinks in this ocean in unknown waters, uncharted territory. Because the cool thing about life is that their ignorance can be instantly removed. It's as if the person is late and the alarm clock suddenly rings, and it's like, oh my God, that person became enlightened. His ignorance of the time, suddenly was gone. Pure enlightenment. In modern society, most people's gurus are like the alarm clock. I think really time has vision is natural, and everybody has their natural vision. Right? What we can do with complexity, what will happen in the future with complexity, is that an era of compassionate perception will arise. We haven't experienced this yet because people's individuality is more important than the collective. So right now, we are pre-pure collectivism of human beings era. You know what I mean? We are before, like, we are literally like before a giant explosion of new human behavior occurs, you know, in accordance to the truths of the realm sharpening up. In the future, there will be no such thing as simple and complex. Simplicity and complexity are seen as codependent dimensions where the world can be interpreted through. In regards to the complexity of what actually happens in society and on this planet, is that really we have actually one place to go. The reason we are on a sphere is so not that we stay on it forever. It's so that you go into space, because why would that space be there? You know, like why couldn't it be like the planet Earth inside a cubic mirror? You know, why is the planet Earth part of a system of vastness and unfathomable complexity? These are questions that in a very profound moment call you forth towards the philosophical angle, to honor the philosophy that is wondering of all the blind spots of reality. A future that looks at everything in an advanced way, and advancement means towards the infinite, all angles considered. So that means there would be no such thing as good and evil. There would be levels, though. I mean, there would be good and evil, but they would be seen as like levels. So when somebody does something in society in the future, these spheres that are going to hover in the streets are going to just perceive it and be like, that is level, 7,032 of evil, or that is level 8,500 of good. Do you know what I mean? we would study the design without the bias of an emotion that wants to quickly put the idea put the experience into a subjective box. We free the world by looking at it differently, pretty much. We free ourselves from the absolutism of meaning towards a way where we could always perceive things multidimensionally. To be a multidimensional thing is like cool. Like, not only is it cool, it is the most fascinating thing to discover, It's very hard to talk about the future because it's so fascinating. Events will happen that are so beyond what we can consider now that you get lost by the fascination. I don't know how to say it, but there's so many ways that life can be lived and is being lived that we have no idea about as a collective. Eventually, these cards will be dealt, where maybe not now, maybe not in my lifetime. I think it probably in my lifetime, but like, let's say in the future, like, there will come a time where we will get bored with emotional utopias, and it will become just the precision of like 8 billion advanced communicators looking at the resources on this planet and retaliating, kind of like this. There was this Japanese comic book called Shingeki no Kyojin, and in it was like there was this idea extinction, right? But in the Shingeki no Kyojin narrative, it was giants were pretty much attacking the last stance of civilization. But for us, it's like the unknown void the unknown is the giant that we have to really, as a species, get our not our act together, but get our visions aligned towards the greatest outcome and immediately implement. That means we're an advanced civilization where everybody is perceived able, but able in the domains that their effort will lead them. Will find us, and if we're smart, we try to make its job easier. In a changing world, what could a named animal do? Like when I really think about life, it's hilarious. You know, right now a train is passing by, maybe people hear it in the background. Imagine in the future that train's gonna pass by between like skyscrapers, you know, just in the air. Technology and space, we in some sense conquer space, but not through force, through abidance with universal nature. Because really, if there were extraterrestrials in the sky and they were looking at human beings, they would probably be like, how aware are these human beings of what they are? And that is something where it has nothing to do with enlightenment. It just has to do with how your attention walks in the moment. And that would be the state where if we had 8 billion people in that state, the most advanced things would happen, because there would be no artificial compassion and there would be no artificial cruelty. You know, it would just be like everything at the end of the day, the context behind what the species means is like advanced civilization. The enlightened society perceived it as an artwork in my sci-fi. I would say for us as a species, I think it's just interstellar narratives. That means we have to start, like motivational speakers have to be like, hey kids, you know, hey future generations, you know, those who will lead the future generations, look at the sky, you see all those stars? Yeah, that's the kind of world you're in, you know, like, you know, it's like motivated enough. So you see, it's like vast. There is, believe it or not, endless room for everybody on this planet to peacefully just in a shamanic way take steps away from the status quo and just observe reality and then return, you see. There was a time where yogis needed to go into caves. Now the yogis of reality are required to come and participate in trying to update the advanced civilization just in case if there's reincarnation. Just in case if there's reincarnation, the most advanced expression in every moment activated. Let's see what happens, you know, and that's the fascination. You know, I'm just a person who, when I think about things, I am seeing images. So my mind has It feels like I feel like an antenna, and in every moment, everywhere I go, this antenna is receiving the moment. And how it receives the moment changes. And when my attention is in this state, there's a strange trust of just existence, knowing what it is and what it's doing. The moment I have that trust, all my physical functions become automated. It's literally like, just like how you breathe and you don't think about your breathing, your whole expression in the moment becomes like that. This is what anybody who just cultivates, silence and stillness for inner self-inquiry finds. The moment has a soul, but it takes a mirror to realize it. So, a person attains a complex in accordance to all the epigenetical factors, all the things outside of their genetics that influence them from their outer realm to shape their inner realm. And the moment the person realizes this is what has happened, you have a free will to start anew. Literally every moment is like Microsoft Word, where you press enter and it goes to the next page, next blank page, next blank page. That is the nature of the mind. And the reason it's happening like this is because of our heartbeat and our breathing. We are a vibrating animal. And I'm saying this scientifically. Literally, we are in movement. The pulse, like, I don't know how to say it, it's like an engine. The heart is just like, the heart is the... So psychology, nature had a part in it, your free will had a part in it, how you have managed your free will as your memories and your relationship with your own past towards the present. All of these things have led to the behavior of now. Now, after we recognize the simplicity of the void, the nihilist is like, wait a minute, if I believe everything is nothing, what am I going to do now? So the nihilist reaches that point, and this is where the nihilist entertains the complexity complex, where we look at something and we're like, okay, literally there's opportunity, we max out the opportunity, we go for it, and we see what happens. So that means if we as 8 billion creatures, whoever you are, wherever you are on the planet listening to this, if you realize you're an advanced communication of your universal sector, literally we're the most badass like species on this planet, the most intelligent to some degree, way more intelligent than the others. So we are the most advanced thing happening on this rock in the middle of nowhere. So when you have that honor, you realize that value. You just, whoever you are, whatever you're doing, just every moment wonder about what the most advanced, and the most advanced considers all angles, so ultimately means you are compassionate even to the cruel. Because there's something more important than wasting one's attention on retaliation against sticky karma. Something strange has happened in the chart of evolution. There was an evolutionary chart, and then we went in, we are right now called the Homo sapien, Homo sapien, something like that. So the Homo sapien is how we are defining ourselves. Now one will understand what would the next evolutionary phase of the sapien be. Now this is where there is a competition between the cyber sapien, I would say, for the animal consumed by technology. And then we require one where this is where I have created the concept of the language threshold, that strangely the Homo sapien was the last of the evolutionary chart. The next phase is a collective liftoff. This collective liftoff means just wondering if all the proper were in set like an orchestra, like a music orchestra. This in set like an orchestra, like a music orchestra. The species began to play this song of the advanced civilization. Imagine. That means in the outer realms, seek the advanced civilization. In your inner realms, seek advanced communication, which means enlightenment, which means wondering about who you are. So I'm connecting the yogic, trying to keep the yogic algorithm alive in that sense, in the ideology. You know, just for the sake of having a word after the Homo sapien, I would say we would call it the transcended animal. Definitely going to dedicate a talk to that. The transcended animal. That means we notice something more than just biological functions going on here. Okay, so sorry guys for the intermission. I was actually looking for pictures to show people here. Okay, there we go. So I'm not sure how accurate this is, but this is what I found as a sort of evolutionary chart of who our ancestors were before our named ancestors, because our true ancestors, they went through a silent phase of just being an updated creature but nameless. So from a long line of evolutionary ancestors, we arise. This is the scientific view. In the picture to the left, it shows you how much it's being considered due to different skull sizes or different evolutionary ancestors. That means the mystery stands of how able they were to interact with language, our ancestors. So beyond the modern Homo sapien, it goes to the cyber sapien, or as I said, the transcended animal. Beyond the transcended animal, it is a collective phenomenon. Through cyberspace, it has the choice to be a collective phenomenon. If we go the route of the cyberspace sapien, something fascinating may occur, where human beings may be born and technology has become so sophisticated in the future that they're actually born into a cyberspace simulation. Right? And so in 10 years of life, their brains experience like 100 years of a lifetime. And in that cyberspace realm, made very similar to Earth, after they transition and die in that cyberspace realm, they awaken in the pod, and they realize that only 10 years, like only a certain amount of time has passed, and they have a second chance on life. So that would be a sort of a strange kind of way civilization can go, you know. Shamanic tribes also had this attitude where they would, their children were born, and for 18 years they were in a dark cave. They weren't allowed to leave a dark cave, and people would bring them food and whatever. Until after 18 years, like imagine for 18 years wondering what's that light coming from the corner of like the cave, right? You know. And suddenly entering reality. You first of all, you become a person who's not afraid of darkness, because on a design level, it's just the quality of the realm. You know. Buckminster Fuller talked about the universe man. You know, the universal man. If we can get 8 billion human beings to identify as, even if you choose to be an individual, but an individual in a universe, like to be serious with that, and then the value of a strategy to indefinitely bypass extinction. You know, so there's many things our planet can do, and there's so many pilots on their way. What that means is there's going to be probably children born who are going to invent stuff, which is going to maybe, like in an instant, revolutionize civilization. You know, it's kind of like a cup that's almost getting full to the brim, and now ability through the context of compassionate advancement. You know. So efficiency becomes the prime mode of behavior to some degree, but not efficiency in the robotic sense where we may imagine. And efficiency of, if you were an antenna, being true to the signals that you receive and what is happening in your realm, and to realize you're the pilot. You're the pilot of your consciousness, that's it. That's like to realize the ability free will gives you, and free will is like a lightsaber. And every person born in a different part of the planet, their lightsaber is a different color in accordance to how their environment has shaped them, and how they have participated in shaping their, you know. I feel even in the future, in an advanced civilization, there would be an honor point system. You know, a cyberspace, you know, reevaluation of all activity on the realm. Anything somebody does, like let's say it's like somebody does something so bad that it's like, you know, a machine in the advanced civilization would be like, oh my god, this person gets 700 dishonor points. you know, or whatever, but it becomes something where behavior is given a numerical value, and in sense of the repetition, like it's complex, but I'm saying like the mind can wonder, you know, where things go if everything is geometrically interconnected and changing at the same time. So if you just look at the design of any moment, you pretty much have an opportunity to realize how light is in your eyes. And starting from there, and the person having an ability to poetically, if the mind was a commander, you serve the commander, and then you in some sense will watch the reality. And when I say serve, it's not serving an idea, serving an image, serving a personality in the void. It is like the superstition has to be put on pause, and a more we have to see what other way we can approach the moment, right? So we need a global management of how extreme inner narratives are having an influence on civilization as a whole, right? And the idea is the more advanced your world is, the more advanced your future will be. So if everybody realizes this idea, then civilization becomes like this giant canvas awaiting the future paintings, and every person's unique DNA is like a unique color on this canvas. So as you live in this life, it's as if the masterpiece of civilization is taking place. The past is done. We have the past as a memory. The present is here, and it's our everything. It's our bread and butter, the here and now. You know, but the future is really where our abilities have a value. And we are in that phase of life where these creatures that have began speaking, the most advanced internal activity is communication, and communication is the trust of the expression. So when you trust your expression, and the world, universe, the edge of the realm is infinite, so you are trusting infinity. And I feel that's an advanced state. Anyways, thanks for listening, guys. And the future is how we move